a long time coming, but it's here. The first set of fines for lockdown parties in Downing Street due to be handed out later on, possibly before lunchtime, by detectives who've been investigating the Partygate scandal. And it's expected that there will be more to come after today.
So we're joined now by the Children and Families Minister, Will Quince. Very good morning to you,
Morning.
Mr Quince. What can you tell us about what we're expecting today from the police?
Morning, Susanna. Richard, thanks for having me on the show. The honest answer is I have no more information than you do. OK.
Are you expecting a fine yourself?
No, I haven't been approached by the Metropolitan Police, nor did I attend a party. So no is the answer to that. But as I say, other than media reports, I haven't heard any more than you have.
If Boris Johnson is issued with a fine, should he stay as Prime Minister?
Susanna, look, I entirely understand why you've asked that question. I also understand the huge public interest in this and the upset and hurt that has been caused. But it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on a live police investigation.
It would be awkward, wouldn't it, if you said, yes, if he's fined by police, he should resign as Prime Minister?
You're also asking me to answer a hypothetical question, and in truth, you wouldn't expect...
you what the consequences might be in an investigation.
Well, look, Susanna, I understand why you've asked the question, but I'm not going to go into hypotheticals.
Why not?
Well, because it is hypothetical. I don't think it's a helpful thing to look.
The Prime Minister has been subject to a police investigation. I'm asking you what you think the consequences should be, just like you would discuss in any investigation.
Susanna, I understand why you've asked the question. And look, I understand the public interest, but it is a hypothetical question. And also, look, there's a live police investigation. These are fair and valid questions. There will be a right time for them, but that's on the conclusion of the investigation. And the Prime Minister has been really clear that on the completion of the investigation, the Sue Gray report will be published as it's handed to the government, and then he'll make a full statement to Parliament. So there will be a time for these questions, but during a live ongoing Metropolitan Police investigation, that time is not now.
Probabilities then, because the prima facie evidence against the Prime Minister personally is pretty strong. I mean, we're looking at photographs there. We've heard statements from people who say he was absolutely at parties and he was drinking and, you know, he was there and he was at it. So the chances that he's going to get a fine seem to be quite high. Would you at least discuss the probability?
No, Richard, we don't prejudge police investigations. The Met have an ongoing live police investigation. It's totally inappropriate for me to comment on that, in particular as a government minister.
OK,
right,
one of your...
Last question on the point then.
Yeah.
Would you, or certainly from me, would you be worried if the news came through today that the Prime Minister had been fined? Would it give you cause for concern, or do you think you could rise above it as a party?
It's a hypothetical question, and one I understand why you've asked it, but it's not one I'm going to answer.
OK, one of your colleagues has commented on Partygate. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg. Is that why you're not commenting? Because it's a disproportionate fluff?
No, look, of course, there's a very, very serious situation in Ukraine that the Prime Minister is leading on, but I don't agree with Jacob on that. I take this incredibly seriously. I know the government takes it incredibly seriously. And Susanna, it won't have gone or without your notice or escaped your notice that there has been significant change in Downing Street. The Prime Minister also apologised to the House. But I think, look, there's an ongoing live police investigation. It's right that we allow them to get on with their job and that to follow its course.
Yeah, you're the Minister for Families and Children. Are you aware of how much hurt Jacob Rees-Mogg's characterisation of the investigation into whether senior government ministers, including the Prime Minister, may have broken their own laws at a time when people could not be together, even to comfort dying relatives?
Susanna, look, I completely get it. I don't agree with what Jacob said. I don't know the full context of what he said and where he said it. I wasn't there. But what I will say...
Conservative Spring Conference, and he was talking about the fact that Ukraine was a very serious issue, and that meant that other issues that we ask about are trivial and nonsense, and he put the Partygate investigation into that box.
No, it's not. Look, of course, the situation in Ukraine is incredibly serious. And my sort of thoughts are in particular with the 7.5 million children that are in Ukraine, often the hidden victims of conflicts of this nature. But of
What
course,
about the children who lost parents to COVID? What about the children who lost grandparents to COVID? What about the parents who couldn't be with their children because of COVID? How can someone so senior as Jacob Rees-Mogg characterise the Partygate investigation, which may see our own Prime Minister fined? How can he characterise it as fluff?
Susanna, I am not disagreeing with you. I take this incredibly seriously. My constituents take this seriously. And I know the government takes it incredibly seriously. That's why the Prime Minister came to the House and apologised. There's an ongoing police investigation. I understand why you're asking these questions. I understand the hurt and the upset's been caused. There are events that shouldn't have happened. I think we know that, but it's really important that we let the police investigation continue its course. And there will be a time for these questions, but that time is not now.
But it would certainly be unwise, wouldn't it, for anybody to assume that because of what's happening in Ukraine and Mr Johnson, on the whole, a fairly well-praised performance over the question of Ukraine, not least by the Ukrainian Premier, it would be a mistake to think that that protected him, wouldn't it? I mean, because Chamberlain, for example, was a serving Prime Minister in wartime when this country was actually at war, and he had to resign, didn't he?
Richard, look, I don't think anyone's suggesting that or downplaying the importance of this issue. But as I say, it's really important that we let the police investigation run its course. From the media reports, it looks like that we might have some news shortly, but I don't have any more information on that than you do. But as I say, don't underestimate how seriously I and the government take this issue.
Let's talk about something which is not hypothetical. That is energy bills, the highest cost of living for families. You're the Minister for Families. Highest cost of living for 30 years. The price cap will rise from around £1,300 per year to nearly £2,000 on Friday. There are fears it could go up to as much as £3,500 in October. Why are you not doing more to help people pay their bills?
So, Susanna, I completely get this. And look, the Chancellor announced a £22 billion package of support this year, including £9.1 billion for energy, even for those on the lowest income support through the Household Support Fund, doubling that fund to
He announced a loan that has to be paid back, Mr Quince.
Look, but it's support now, which is what people rightly need. Look, I was the Minister for Department of Work and Pensions throughout the pandemic. The Chancellor was before the Treasury Select Committee yesterday, and he said, look, there is uncertainty in the market. We don't know what the situation is in Ukraine and what it'll be in a few months' time. We don't know what commodity prices, including energy prices, will be. It's right that the Chancellor has that agility, but he did also make clear
There's no
that he won't...
uncertainty about the fact prices are going up. I'm sorry. Yeah. And he said that he will offer people more support with their energy bills only if necessary. It is necessary.
Yeah, and Susanna, that's because there are only three ways that we can support funding of that nature. One is to cut services, the other is to raise taxes, or the other is to borrow. So these are all difficult decisions for Chancellor to take. But I understand the pressures on families at the moment. Well, that's why that £9.1 billion energy package has been put in place. But look, let me say again, when I was a Minister at the Department of Work and Pensions, the Chancellor and the Prime Minister did not fail at any point to step up and support, where necessary, the poorest, disadvantaged and vulnerable in our country. And I have no doubt if costs rise...
Mr Quince, you took away £1,000 a year from people on universal credit. How is that helping?
Look, this is the Susanna, I understand what you're saying, but this is the government that also put £400 billion to support the jobs, businesses, livelihoods,
from people on universal credit. You took away £1,000 a year. That is, I mean, can you imagine how much that would help somebody who is facing an increase of that amount of money on their energy bills? How can you say you're helping when you've actually cut the amount given to those on the lowest incomes?
That was put in place as a targeted measure for the pandemic. But look at the universal credit. I don't know if you've
noticed, Mr Quince, but inflation is now at its highest in 30 years. You also haven't raised benefits in line with inflation. It is disingenuous to say you're helping those at the poorest end.
Well, the polls seem to show that if your government doesn't get a grip on the cost of living crisis, which is what it is, you're going to lose the next election. That is a vote-losing, an election-losing issue. Are you confident that you're going to be able to turn things around?
Richard, this government has consistently stepped up to help the poorest, most disadvantaged and vulnerable in our society, and will continue to do so. I have no doubt about that. I know the Chancellor and the Prime Minister well. They've done it throughout the pandemic, and necessarily will continue to do it to support families.
All right, I'm afraid there isn't time to talk about the Special Education Leeds Green Paper. That was one of the things...
Why don't you give us tell us quickly, Mr Quince.
All right, Susanna, thank you. Because there's 1.4 million children with special education needs, and today we're launching our ambitious new plans to transform the outcomes for children and young people with special education needs. So really, really important. And I would encourage as many people as possible over the next 13 weeks to take part in our consultation.
Mr Quince, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.